This happened just a few months ago. I was 32 and had recently moved into a cozy apartment downtown. I thought it would be a good place for me to work as a freelance graphic designer and take my mind off my breakup. The place was older and had character, with creaky floors and exposed wooden beams. Honestly, I liked that vibe. But I've never stopped thinking about what happened after I settled in. On my third night, while I was drawing in my living room, I heard it. A faint tapping coming from the ceiling. I thought maybe it was the old heater acting up. Still, it felt strange. I couldn't focus on my work. It was annoying. It continued for days, moving from light tapping to a steady knock. It felt like someone was trying to get through to me from above. One evening, I glanced out my window and saw something move in the corner of my eye. Just a shadow, I told myself. But when I looked closely, nothing was there. I shrugged it off, convincing myself that shadows play tricks. But the chill that ran down my spine wouldn't fade. The drafts were strange too. One afternoon, a cold breeze whipped through the living room, even though all the windows were closed. It raised the hairs on my arms. I stepped outside for some fresh air one morning and noticed something odd on my doorstep. It was a child's toy, a small, dusty truck. I couldn't understand why it was there. I didn't have kids or any guests to leave things behind. I thought maybe it was a mistake. I picked it up, stared at it, and left it there, unsure whether to toss it or leave it for the next tenant. Days later, I found a faded photo just like the truck, outside my door. It showed a family I didn't recognize, smiling and gathered close together. I had never seen them before. My heart raced as I felt a wave of unease wash over me. I started questioning everything. Maybe my apartment carried echoes of the past. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. Then one night during a thunderstorm, I was lying in bed. The knocking returned, louder this time. It felt like someone was right above me, banging on the floor. I pulled the covers over my head, my heart pounding. Then silence. Just as I peeked out, a voice whispered, "Help me." I froze. I turned my head slowly to listen. No one was there. The apartment felt thick with uncertainty. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. These experiences still haunt me. The tapping, the shadows, the kid's toy, and the photo. I didn't know what to think. Was I going crazy? I wish it made sense. I didn't feel safe anymore. I left my apartment not long after. It still lingers in my mind, unexplained. I can't shake the feeling that something was there, watching me. I don't know what it was, and I never want to find out. The days turned into weeks after I left the apartment. I tried to bury the memories, but the unease lingered. I moved in with my sister for a while, thinking it would help clear my mind. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I noticed a familiar face. It was the family from the faded photo. I felt my heart drop. Instantly, I clicked on the image to zoom in. Their smiles seemed genuine, but I didn't recognize any of them. Curiosity got the better of me. I began searching for information about them online. I found an old newspaper article mentioning a tragic fire that had occurred in my building years before a family had perished. A chill crept over me as I read. I now understood the whispers. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were somehow tied to what I had experienced. That weekend, I decided to visit the local historical society. Maybe I could find out more about the fire. The small building housed old books and dusty archives, but the staff was friendly and eager to help. I told them about my apartment and the strange occurrences. They listened, their expressions shifting from polite interest to concern as I spoke. One lady led me to a shelf filled with old newspapers. As we thumbed through the pages, I exposed more articles about the fire. There were photos, including a blurry snapshot of a little girl holding that same toy truck. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. The resemblance was uncanny. Then, just as I was about to leave, I spotted a small wooden box tucked away in a corner. "What is this?" I asked, pointing it out. The lady hesitated before handing it to me. "It's a keepsake box from the victim's belongings. We wanted to ensure it gets to the right place." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were a few charred toys, an old watch, and a small notebook. I flipped through the pages of the notebook, scanning the neat handwriting. It belonged to the little girl, a list of wishes and dreams. But suddenly, I stopped. At the very bottom of the last page, there was a drawing of a house, my apartment building, flames engulfing it, and written above in looping letters, "I want to go home." Tears filled my eyes. For a moment, I felt an overwhelming sadness, as if the weight of their loss blanketed me. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. I had fled from the apartment, but now I realized that whatever presence was there wasn't malevolent. It was trapped, longing to be freed. I needed to find a way to help them. As I left the historical society, I couldn't shake the feeling something was waiting for me. That night, I stood at my sister's apartment balcony, looking at my old place in the distance. Everything felt heavy again. Then, I heard a low whisper carried by the wind. "Please." I knew I had to return. But I didn't know how deep this mystery went or the dangers that awaited me. That night, sleep was elusive. I tossed and turned, haunted by the little girl's drawing and the whispered plea. I felt a pull toward my old apartment, like a string connected to something deep inside me. Morning came too soon, and I made up my mind. I was going back. I drove back to the building, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The sun was shining, but my heart raced as I parked in front. The building loomed like a specter. Memories flooded my mind, the laughter, the joy, and the moments weighed down with shadows I wanted to forget. I stood there for a moment, staring up at the familiar windows, hoping they wouldn't hold any more surprises. Stepping inside, I noticed the air felt different, heavier. The scent of the building had changed, now a bitter mix of age and loss. I walked to the stairwell, each step echoing with uncertainty. As I approached my old apartment door, I hesitated. What was I expecting? A sign? A ghost? I took a deep breath and knocked softly. Nothing. I waited. I knocked again, louder this time. Still silence. I felt stupid standing there, but my curiosity pushed me forward. I fumbled with the doorknob, half expecting it to be locked. To my surprise, it turned easily. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside. It felt eerily familiar. The furniture was gone, but the remnants of my life there were etched into the walls. I half expected to see shadows moving, but there was only the stillness. I took a step further, feeling a sense of unease creep over me again. That's when I noticed the children's drawings that lined the walls, sudden flashes of colors against the peeling paint. They twisted my insides. I approached a few, recognizing the same scrawled letters from the notebook. "I want to play," one read. Another said, "Make it stop." My heart dropped. It was like they reached out to me with their silent screams. Trembling, I looked more closely at the drawings. Then I saw it. A message in one corner of the wall, 3 words scrawled in crayon, "Help us, please." I felt an electric jolt run through me. I wasn't just standing in an empty apartment, I was standing in their memories, their pain. I had to do something. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence. A crash came from the back room, loud and jarring. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone. Unable to move, I turned slowly toward the sound. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky. My heart started pounding again. Just then, I saw it. A shadow flickered in the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, and there it was, a small figure, barely anything at all, darting out of sight into the darkest part of the room. I swallowed hard. "Wait." I yelled, but the figure was gone. Against every instinct telling me to flee, I stepped toward that darkness, drawn by an odd mix of fear and hope. Light came from a cracked window, illuminating the dusty air as I moved closer. I had to know. But as I turned the corner, something cold brushed against my arm, and the air turned icy. Then everything went dark. My senses came rushing back, but something felt off. I was on the floor, disoriented. The dim light from the window barely reached me, casting long shadows across the room. I could feel my heart pounding heavily in my chest. Had I fainted? I pushed myself up, palms slick against the cool, wooden floor. The room was still. Just moments before, there had been movement. The little figure. Whispers. I scanned the shadows, but nothing stirred. My breath caught in my throat again as I realized the chilling silence now felt almost alive. Then I noticed something tucked under the old, dreary wallpaper, the edge of a piece of paper. Almost instinctively, I reached out and peeled it back. My hands trembled as I revealed the drawing underneath. It was another childish drawing, depicting a large, menacing figure with glowing eyes towering over smaller shapes. The shapes looked familiar, like the children in previous drawings. A knot formed in my stomach. Before I could process this, the sound of skittering echoed again from the back room. It was a quick, frantic noise, like a small animal or worse, something I couldn't see. My gut twisted, but I felt compelled to investigate. I stood on shaky legs, every instinct screaming for me to run, but curiosity grabbed hold of me. With slow, deliberate steps, I moved toward the sound. The remains of the apartment whispered stories of its past as I took each step, memories buzzing in my mind. The living room once brimmed with life, but now it felt so hollow, so treacherous. I peeked into the back room. My breath hitched again at what I found. In the corner, a small pile of scattered toys lay covered in dust. My heart sank as I recognized one of them, a battered teddy bear I had given to the little girl. How had it gotten here? The shadows shifted, and I felt the air grow heavier. I stepped closer, cautious, as if stepping on delicate glass. The weird skittering turned into desperate scratching. It was coming from the closet. Something or someone was inside. A shudder crept through me. Should I open the door? What if it was the little figure? But what if it was something worse? Just as I reached for the handle, a sharp scream echoed through the apartment, piercing the heavy silence. I froze again, heart racing, thoughts racing. It wasn't human. It sounded desperate, a cry for help that shattered my resolve. Without thinking, I yanked open the closet door. It swung wide, and I peered into the dark space, my breath held tight in my chest. I expected to see a child or a strange creature, anything, but the darkness seemed to stretch beyond the confines of reality. And in that moment, I realized I had crossed into something I didn't understand, something that was far from over. But I couldn't just leave. I had to know who or what was waiting for me in that endless dark. But then, from somewhere deep inside, a whisper came, "Help us." I took a step back, overwhelmed. My hands trembled, and suddenly the room began to vibrate. I stumbled, trying to regain my footing, my head spinning. A shadow seemed to shape itself at the edge of my vision. And just like that, the whispers grew louder, swirling around me, consuming me whole. I had come to help, but as the darkness surged forward, I began to realize I might be the one in need of rescue. I felt the shadows close in, a suffocating presence. The whispering voices echoed around me, weaving in and out of my consciousness, drawing me back toward the closet. It was as if they were tying invisible strings around my limbs, pulling me closer to the dark abyss before me. Suddenly, the closet door slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls, making me jump back. My heart raced as I looked around, searching for the source of that sudden noise. The air felt thick and charged, and I could hear a faint trembling sound, like the shivering breath of a child hiding in fear. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely rose above the weight of the silence that filled the room. I didn't expect a response, but I needed to hear something, anything. The scratching intensified, then stopped as if it were listening. I raised my hands to cover my ears, but the whispers grew louder, and all I could discern was the repetition of the words "help us." In a moment of clarity, I thought of the drawings. They had all warned me of something. Maybe the child, the one I tried to help, was trapped. Trapped like the dark presence that seemed to fill the entire apartment. I stepped cautiously back toward the closet, my mind racing through every cautionary tale I'd ever heard. What was behind that door? I wrapped my fingers around the handle again, steeling myself against the growing dread. "Whatever is in there, I won't let you hurt me," I said, though my own voice quivered with uncertainty. In a burst of courage, I flung the door open. This time, the darkness exploded outward, enveloping me in a rush. I was switched off from reality, surrounded by a void where nothing made sense. I couldn't tell up from down as the shadows enveloped me. Just before I lost myself in the darkness, a shape surged forward, small but fierce. It was the child from the drawings, or at least a figure resembling her. Her eyes glowed with a desperate light, shining bright against the background of nothingness. "Help! You have to help us!" she cried, barely audible over the rising chaos. I reached out, desperate to connect, but she was pulled back into the shadows, leaving me grappling with air. As I lunged forward, I could almost feel the thin fabric of her dress brush against my fingertips. But it evaporated before I could grasp hold of it. Everything around me spun faster. My heart was in my throat, and I realized the whispers were no longer just words. They turned into a cacophony of cries, overlapping and layering, drowning out all rational thought. I pressed my hands to my ears, and for a frantic moment, I thought I would break beneath the weight of their sorrow. Then, a horrifying realization struck me. I recognized some of those voices. They were familiar, too familiar. I had heard them in the hallways of this very building. They were the children, missing and searching for something, a way to escape whatever dark force held them captive. Just then, everything stopped. The noise faded away, replaced by an unsettling stillness. I exhaled, but my breath was caught short as I felt a hand on my shoulder, cold and trembling. I turned quickly, my pulse racing again. A figure loomed behind me in the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here," it breathed out in a shuddering whisper. Before I could respond, the room erupted in darkness once more, and I was plunged into a world where every sound was amplified, every fear magnified. I had come here seeking answers, but now, I feared I had awakened something I couldn't control. All I could think was, I might not escape this time. I stumbled backward at the sound of that voice, feeling the weight of panic hammering at my chest. My instincts kicked in, and I ran, though I had no idea where I was going. The darkness moved like a living thing, wrapping around my legs, making it hard to step forward. As I dashed away, I searched blindly for a way out. I felt like a moth caught in a storm, spinning without direction. My hands grazed against cold walls, I could sense the air getting denser, electric and charged. Suddenly, I fell forward. The floor disappeared, and I landed hard on a surface that smelled of dust and mold. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts and focus. When I looked up, I found myself in a small, dimly lit room. Familiar objects surrounded me, the toys and pictures from the children's drawings. I scrambled to my feet, trying to keep my breathing quiet. "This isn't real," I told myself. "It's just in your head." But deep down, something told me it wasn't. A soft sound broke the silence. I recognized it instantly, a child's laugh. Reluctantly, I turned toward the sound, hoping to find some sign of the girl from the closet. Instead, I saw a group of shadowy figures gathered in a corner, barely visible in the gloom. They stood still, staring at me with wide, mournful eyes. "Help us," one of them finally said, and my stomach twisted. It was the same cry I'd heard before. "We need you." "What do you mean?" I shot back, panic rising in me again. What do you want from me? The shadows shifted closer, the air thick with an oppressive energy. To escape, a voice echoed, shadowy mouths forming the words. We're trapped. My mind raced. A thought flickered, it was like a light in the dark. They wanted out, but how? I can't help if I don't understand. I yelled, desperation spilling over. One of the figures stepped forward. It looked like the girl from my drawings. You have to listen. Together we can stop it. The moment she said it, the atmosphere shifted again. The ground beneath us trembled, and the shadows around us roared to life, swirling and mutating. I felt a tugging sensation at my feet, as if the ground wanted to swallow me whole. Now! She cried, reaching her hand out. I could see her face distinctly now, the same sorrowful eyes that had haunted me in every drawing. We can do this if you believe. In that instant, I realized I could choose. I could choose to fight. I took a step forward, reaching out for her hand. But just as our fingertips brushed, the darkness surged and a piercing scream filled the room. No! I shouted, pulling back instinctively. There was something more here, something darker than just the shadows. Then everything went dark. The room dissolved, and I felt the vertigo take over again. This time, I knew I couldn't remain passive. I had to act. I was pulled back into the void. I gasped as if surfacing from a deep pool. The figure was gone, and I was left alone, stranded in an endless sea of darkness. But the shadows were still there, whispering, taunting me. I shook my head, forcing myself to think. If I was going to fight this, I needed answers and time was running out. That's when I saw it. A faint glow in the distance, pulsing like a heartbeat. Something or someone was drawing me toward it. But what awaited me at the source of that light? I had to find out before it was too late. I pushed forward, determined to reach the light. Each step felt like wading through thick fog, but the pull grew stronger. The glow beckoned me, promising answers or maybe more questions. Hope flickered in my chest. As I approached, I noticed more details. The light wasn't just bright, it was warm, like sunlight breaking through a storm. It felt familiar, almost comforting. I reached out, my fingers brushing the soft radiance. The moment I touched it, everything shifted. The room around me transformed. I found myself in a vast space filled with swirling colors, reminiscent of a sunset but painted in a way that was hauntingly beautiful. A swirl of soft blues, blood reds, and vibrant oranges engulfed me, making the shadows retreat. The figures were here, dancing within the light, shifting shapes blending into the hues. Do you see us now? One of the shadows whispered, their voice like a gentle breeze. I faced the girl again. What happened? Why are you all trapped? My voice was shaky, caught between fear and curiosity. Her eyes widened, filled with urgency. You need to understand, it's not just the dark that holds us. There is something worse, something alive. What do you mean? But even as I asked, a sense of dread coiled in my stomach. I couldn't deny I felt it too, the heaviness in the air, the darkness lurking just beyond the light. It feeds on fear, she explained, her voice steady despite the chaos. It takes us, one by one, until we're nothing. The other figures nodded solemnly, confirming her words. Suddenly, an icy wind whipped through the room, snuffing out the warmth of the light. I staggered back, and the vibrant colors faded into shades of gray. The shadows returned, more menacing than before, like predators drawn to new prey. No! I screamed, searching for a way back to the warmth. The darkness thickened around me, blocking my escape. The girl from the drawing stepped closer, trying to pull me back. You can't lose hope. That's how it gets you. Her voice was calm, yet fierce. We need you to remember the light. I felt the pull of despair threatening to drown me. How? How do I fight it? I shouted back as panic surged within me. Believe, she urged. Speak the truth. Before I could respond, I felt something encircle my ankle. A deep, guttural whisper echoed, drowning out everything else. Leave her. She is not one of us. A weight pressed against me, squeezing tighter. My heart raced. I realized it wasn't just a battle for the shadows, it was a battle for my own spirit. Summoning every ounce of strength, I forced myself to recall the warmth, the light. I'm not afraid. I want to let you take me. I shouted into the void. Instantly, I felt a shift. The grip on my ankle loosened. The shadows hissed, recoiling. No. You can't. And just like that, the light surged back, engulfing me. I knew this was my moment. As the luminescence swirled around, I closed my eyes and focused on the girl's face. Together, I whispered, feeling the strength of unity. But as the light expanded, my vision clouded. I heard a final scream, a desperate wail. Don't let it win. Then everything went black again. I gasped, trying to regain my breath. I was back in the darkness, but this time something shifted within me. I understood now, the fight hadn't ended. I needed to face whatever lurked in the shadows, and time was fading fast. Suddenly, I felt a chilling presence surge behind me. I turned, heart pounding. Someone or something was watching me. And I knew it wouldn't rest until it had what it wanted. The air felt thick, heavier than before. I strained my eyes, trying to make out any semblance of a familiar shape in the shadows. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. Curiosity and fear waged a war within me. Slowly, I took a step back, but my foot hit something cold and hard. I whipped around to see what it was, but the darkness obscured everything. I held my breath, readying myself to scream, but a whisper crept through the air, chilling me to my core. Stay, just stay. The voice sent electrifying ribs of fear across my spine, but I couldn't tell if it was coming from behind me or all around. Panic surged, urging me to break free, yet I felt rooted to the spot. What do you want? I managed to croak out, my voice barely a murmur against the growing darkness. As if in response, everything shifted again. The shadowy figures pressed closer, their forms becoming clearer. They were faces, eyes wide with a mix of fear and longing. I was in a room with them now, isolated yet surrounded, all at once, by their sorrow. Help us, one of them pleaded, reaching out with an ethereal hand. You can still find the light. But I was terrified. What if trying to help them meant inviting the darkness into my own life? What if trying to remember was just a trap? My heart raced, battling those questions as thoughts spiraled into darkness instead of light. The girl from before stood among them, her features clearer now. You must find the truth, she insisted. The light only answers when you are brave enough to confront it. I can't. I shouted, frustration bubbling over. Okay, please, you can do this. Look for what you've lost, she urged. Her eyes twinkled like distant stars amidst the impending doom. You must be willing to fight. And then it hit me, the light. I needed to remember the warmth I had felt before, the comfort it offered. I tried to think back to that moment, focusing on the sensation that had enveloped me. Light, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. Come back. But the shadows grew restless. The icy wind returned, swirling ominously, and the murmurs turned into guttural growls. No light. No hope. The darkness chanted, as if it fed off my despair. No. I shouted again, pushing my fear aside. You will not take me. I will not let you win. Ignoring the fear tightening around my chest, I concentrated hard on the girl. I want to help, I said, voice steadying with resolve. Show me what to do. The shadows froze, momentarily stunned by my declaration. Then, a piercing howl erupted from the depths of the darkness, echoing off unseen walls. Stop her. She can't remember. The voice shrieked, and I felt a powerful force erupt towards me. I opened my mind, feeling the warmth rush back as I focused on the hope that had flickered within me before. I thought of light, of warmth, of laughter and joy. I called to the girl and the spirits around me. Together, we can fight this. Suddenly, I saw a crack in the darkness, a sliver of light cutting through like a beacon. My heart raced with the realization that I could find my way back. We have to push toward it, I urged, pulling the courage from deep within. But just as I surged forward, something vicious lunged out from the shadows. I barely had time to react. Then everything went silent, and the darkness enveloped me once more. I gasped, the air cold against my face as I emerged from the darkness. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The shadows were gone, but a strange dimness clung to the corners of the room. I was back in my house, but it felt foreign. Was I dreaming? I blinked, trying to shake off the confusion. The familiar layout of my living room seemed warped, the furniture twisting into unusual shapes. The silence was suffocating, wrapping around me like a thick blanket. I took a cautious step forward, but the sound of my foot hitting the floor echoed unsettlingly. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed, bouncing off the walls in a way that felt unnatural. No response. The shadows had faded, but the unease lingered. Had I actually been there, or was it all in my head? Then I noticed something out of place on the coffee table, a dusty old photograph. It was me, but I looked younger, surrounded by strangers. I reached out, fingers brushing the surface. As soon as I touched it, a rush of memories flooded me: laughter, happiness, a safe feeling. But they were intermixed with flashes of darkness, the faces growing distorted and ominous. "Why this picture?" I whispered, but the room offered no answers. Anxiety pricked at my heart, forcing me to search for clarity. I scanned the room, feeling the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Why did everything feel so heavy? The air was thick with something, a pressure that made me want to scream. I stumbled back, bumping into the couch. I started to turn, but not before I noticed the picture. The faces shifted again, as if they were watching me. Then, the lights flickered, casting strange shadows that danced across the walls. My breath quickened, unease settling deeper in my gut. Was it just the power acting up? Or something more sinister? Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the room. I shivered, a chill running down my spine. I fought the urge to bolt from the house. "I'm okay," I murmured. But that's when I heard it, a soft, faint whisper, more chilling than before. "Help me." The sound wrapped around me, making my skin crawl. My instinct was to run, but I was paralyzed. I looked around the room, desperate to see who could be there, but nothing, just the flickering lights. The photograph slid from my fingers and fluttered to the ground, face up. In that moment, I saw a glimpse of the girl from the shadows, the girl begging for help. Her eyes locked onto mine, pleading desperately as the shadows pressed in on her. "You must remember," she cried. Before I could respond, a loud thud echoed from the kitchen. My heart raced. What was that? I knew I had to check it out, but dread gripped me. My feet felt like lead. "Stay here," I whispered to myself. "You have to stay." But the whisper came again, this time more insistent. "Help me." The voice pulled at me, urging me to find the source. I took a tentative step toward the kitchen, fueled by an unsettling mix of fear and curiosity. And then, just as I reached the doorway, the lights went out completely. Everything plunged into darkness, and I felt a wave of despair crash over me. "No!" I shouted, my voice trembling in the void. "Not again!" In the pitch black, my heart raced, and somewhere deep inside, I knew I couldn't turn back. I took a deep breath, forcing my way into the unknown. "I'm coming. Just hang on." The unknown awaited, and I was determined to face it. I stumbled through the darkness, my hands reaching out in front of me, searching for anything that could ground me. My heart raced, echoing in the silence that surrounded me. The whispering returned, soft yet urgent, swirling like a song just out of reach, urging me forward. "Help us!" I squeezed my eyes shut, willing my feet to move. I had to focus. There was something tethering me to this place, an energy that both terrified and beckoned me. Whatever had happened before, whatever I had faced, I couldn't let fear have the final say. Not anymore. Suddenly, the darkness thinned, and I found myself standing in the living room once more, familiar yet unsettling in its stillness. I could hear my breathing, ragged and loud in the silence. Stray rays of moonlight filtered through the windows, and as I looked around, I noticed a faint glimmer on the coffee table, the dusty photograph. Approaching cautiously, I picked it up again. The faces, distorted but now undeniably familiar, seemed to watch me with an intensity that made my stomach churn. The little girl's pleading eyes bore into my soul. "You must remember," she had said. But remember what? As if in answer to my unspoken thoughts, a flicker of light pulsed through the shadows, illuminating an old, cracked mirror hanging on the wall. I looked into it, and what I saw sent chills down my spine. Reflected behind me was a dark silhouette, hovering just beyond my reach, a presence that felt unrelenting and powerful. "Do you see me?" it whispered, a voice so cold it snuffed out hope. "You shouldn't have come back." I backed away, my fingers trembling against the photograph. "I have to help you," I stammered, though my voice wavered. "I can't leave you trapped like this." The silhouette twitched, shadows rippling like water disturbed by a stone. "Trapped?" it repeated, tauntingly. "Trapped is what you chose when you walked through the door." That word echoed in my head, choose. The choice had always been mine, hadn't it? To turn back at any moment, to face what was waiting, or to succumb to the inviting warmth of ignorance. But what was waiting? "I want to understand," I said, more firm this time. "What binds you? Why can't you leave?" A chilling laugh echoed in the room. "Your precious light won't save you from the truth. You are but a vessel here, nothing more. Help us. You barely understand what you are asking." In that moment, I felt the weight of contradiction, fear intertwined with compassion. What if the darkness held answers too? What if it revealed the truth of their sorrow? My heart raced, but I took a step closer, determined to maintain the connection. "Tell me then," I urged, voice steady. "Tell me what happened. I can help you find peace." The figure shrank back, revealing blurred faces, children huddled together, their eyes wide and terrified. "They will not stop until they take what is left," one child said, her voice shaky yet resolute. "They feed on despair, on lost hope. Fear allows it to grow," the little girl whispered, her voice above the rest, eyes pleading again. "But light, your light is stronger. You must face it." With each word, the shadows in the room twisted, swirling chaotically. My heart pounded, looking from one face to another, trying to anchor myself in a sea of confusion. Deep down, instinct told me there was wisdom in their words. Then came another cry, desperate and piercing. "Please. You can end this." I choked out, swallowed by the urgency of their plight. "I will. But how?" Gathering my courage, I cast a glance back at the mirror. The darkness behind me swirled, forming into viscous tendrils that seemed to pulse with a malevolence of their own. I shuddered but stepped closer to the glass surface. "If you can hear me, I will not fear you. Not anymore." As soon as the words left my mouth, the tendrils convulsed, convulsing angrily. "Foolish child." The voice roared, resonating through the room like thunder. "You think light can banish me? I know it can." I shouted back, letting my resolve crystallize. "You thrive on fear, but I choose hope. I choose to believe in something more than this darkness." The mirrored reflection began to ripple, distorting my appearance. The figures behind me gasped as the shadow surged forward, coiling around me, squeezing tighter. But I pressed on. I see you. I acknowledge your pain. I opened my hands, feeling warmth radiate from my chest. This was their energy, their plight interwoven with my own. You have nothing on me. I will not be your vessel. I will not be trapped. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in protest, and I thought I felt warmth begin to seep through the depths of the dark. Together. The children cried, their voices merging. I shouted, together. We united in the light, creating a pulse that filled the room, growing brighter, pushing against the boundaries of darkness. The pressure around me began to diminish. I felt the shadows thicken and writhe, their hold loosening. No. The creature screeched, but I felt it slipping, a tendril snapped free. Now. The girl urged. Don't let it take you. With renewed resolve, I thrust my hands forward, as bright light spilled forth from my chest, flooding the room. The shadows screamed, contorting as the very essence of darkness began to evaporate. No. Not the light. It howled, twisting in agony, unraveling like an ancient curse. And then, everything collapsed into brilliance. All at once, I was released from the grip of despair. There were no whispers, no screams, only silence, suffused with a calming warmth. When my vision cleared, I stood in my living room once again, but now it was transformed. It felt vibrant, alive, no trace of sorrow, no shadow lurking in corners. The photograph still lay on the table, but the faces in it were serene, their eyes sparkling with something new, peace. I exhaled, feeling a weight lift from my heart. Had I truly freed them? There was no way to know for sure. But deep down, I sensed that their shadows had receded, leaving only echoes of their laughter. And yet, I couldn't shake the lingering feeling that something still awaited in the depths. Questions remained, swirling in the corners of my mind, an unsettling feeling that these lives had touched mine for a reason. I stepped back outside, breathing in the crisp air. I moved to a different city soon after, starting a new chapter of my life, but the memory of those children stayed with me. I still think about them sometimes. I don't know if they found peace, or if the shadows lingered. But beneath it all, one thread remained untangled, a belief that hope, no matter how faint, shines brightest in the dark.